Restack the deck. Swear to God, they're not talking to me anymore. Hey everybody, welcome back to GearWire.com. I'm Bill Holland, and I'm here in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, interviewing Jim Bellmore from the Yooper Studios. Jim has recorded not only his own band, but a good amount of the bands in the Marquette, Ishpeming, and Negaunee area. So without further ado, let's go talk to Jim about mastering, recording, and taking his band live. So your vocals, once you've got your vocals ready and you've got all of your different lines, when you bring them into the mix, how are you mixing the various instruments? I mean, where is everything placed in the mix?
Well, usually what I'll do is I'll start off with the drums, and then I'll get the bass at a good level with the drums, and I'll be trying to just set those levels so you're getting close to your ceiling, or your to where you're not peaking. Of course, you're going to be adding other instruments in, but you've got to make sure once you get that mix done that I was going to say saturating the tape, but even digitally, this is important in terms of the bits that are being used. You want to make sure that you've got a hot enough level, not too hot, but then not too quiet either. Usually you want to get fairly hot, but you want to save some of that for the mastering. It's better to master with your levels down a little bit, and with anyway, but we'll get to that later maybe. We get the vocals done. Usually, okay, I'll start off getting the drums basically set, adding the bass in there so it meshes with the kick, but so that it's, of course, not too loud or too quiet. Make it one with the kick, grasshopper. Anyway, okay, so then the rhythm guitars, or a guitar. Usually I'll save whatever lead instruments, be it a piano solo or a guitar solo, I'll save that for last. In other words, I'll go from the drums, bass, rhythm instruments, be it guitar, accordion, etc., to the vocals now. And the important thing here is transparency with the vocals. If you listen to a lot of professional recordings throughout the decades, you will usually notice, let's just talk in general terms, rock and roll, blues, kind of commercial music, most of the rock stuff you've heard, whatever, you'll find that the vocals are fairly transparent. In other words, there's not a ton of lows on the vocals. If you really listen, you'll hear that sometimes they'll scoop out certain frequencies because they want the vocals, they want to be able to turn them up so that they fit in there into the pocket and you can hear them, but so that the bass and the kick still really stand out. And if you've got vocals that, say, by themselves sound really full, sometimes it's going to sit way too on top of the music with all those lows in the vocals, and you want to try to end up with a transparent vocal that you can turn up so it's loud, but so that it's still, the bass and the kick and certain other instruments have that strength. You don't want the music to sound weak. Again, this depends on what genre or whatever you're trying to do, but in general terms, that's what we try to do. I'll work real hard with that, cutting certain frequencies in certain instruments, like the kick drum. You want the kick drum, you don't want it to sound, unless you're doing maybe rap or hip hop, you don't want there to be too much lows on the kick. You want it to stand out and be clean. So you'll be scooping certain frequencies there, be it the 250 or sometimes the 40. Scoop those out by 3 to 6 decibel. Try that. It depends on how it sounds naturally, but typically something like that. Scoop some 250 out of the bass. Take a look at the guitars. You got the vocal in there now. Are the guitars not too loud but still somehow getting in the way of the vocal? Try cutting maybe some 1K on the guitar. See if that opens up the vocal. So after we get that done, where we've got a nice transparent vocal, everything seems to be nice, then I'll look at the lead instruments, be it accordion or guitar or keyboard or whatever, and I'll get those set in there. And of course, using somewhat of a stereo, I'll have the drums more or less panned left, right. The snare and the kick usually in the center. The toms, of course, panned appropriately. Sometimes I'll do 66 left on the floor, 66 right on the high tom. The overhead mics will be panned completely. take, say, the piano, put it to the left a little bit, maybe the guitar to the right. It just depends really on how many tracks you've got in there, but create a little bit of a stereo mix to open things up a bit. I try not to go too nuts like the Beatles, you know, like George Martin and them did with the Beatles, where you're at a bar, you're somewhere where they've got the speakers, you know, they got the one way over here and one over here, and you're hearing just Paul singing. You know what I mean? Or some of those Beatle records. I mean, I don't like doing that because of that kind of a situation, you know. I like everybody in the room, no matter where you're sitting, to basically be hearing the song the way it's supposed to be, as opposed to hearing, you know, just the guitars and the drums, and then over here's the vocals, you know. So I try not to go too much on that, but enough to open it up